Hi, I'm Dave Kale. Welcome to this Christian Business Insights podcast show where my goal is to provide you with practical, actionable ideas to help you create businesses and careers of excellence and at the same time multiply your influence for the kingdom. I have been a Christian in business for over 30 years, and I have personally and contractually consulted with over 500 different sales organizations. So in these podcasts, I combine the lessons that I have learned with an out-of-the-box experience and perspective on Christianity that you will find challenging. And we put that together to provide you with practical insights and ideas that you can use to live better and lead better. Welcome to the journey. Hi, this is Dave. So why is it so difficult to change our behavior? Or, I guess more practically, why is it so difficult for managers and entrepreneurs and executives to help their employees change their behavior? I'm going to be talking about that issue in relationship to sales, but it's broader than just sales. My examples are sales because that's the world I work in. But this is an issue that is far broader than just sales. Let me just start with an example here. You just introduced a new product, and at the sales meeting, the salespeople seem to be excited, and yet 3 months later, nothing's been sold. What's up? Or you work with the salesperson in the field, and you identify some skill that seems poorly developed, such as, maybe asking better questions, for example. Then you point it out to the salesperson and you provide some examples and ask him to work on it. And the next time you work with him or her, there is no improvement. Why is that? Well, here's one more example of this phenomena. Your company has just invested in a major upgrade to your CRM system. Salespeople must use the system to record every sales call. Yet, 4 months into the system, some are still not yet complying. What's going on? In each of these examples, the company's leadership wants some change in the behavior of the person, and some or most of those salespeople are not changing. Clearly, if they would just do some things differently, both they and the company would be better off. So why don't they? In this economy, when things are radically different than they were just a couple of years ago, the ability to change in positive ways in response to a rapidly changing economic environment, that is the fundamental success skill for individuals and organizations. Let me repeat that. In this economy where things are radically different than they were just a couple of years ago, the ability to change in positive ways in response to that rapidly changing economic environment is the fundamental success skill for individuals and organizations. Yet, over and over again, salespeople, sales managers, sales leaders, and, any department as far as that goes, all struggle with making the changes that we know we should make. So why is that? And the answer is something that I've been concerned with for the entirety of my career. So for 30 years, 35 years, I have been addressing that issue. And the answer to why is it that people don't change like you want them to, the answer is what I call the gap between idea and action. We often have the right idea, but it does not get translated into action as effectively as anyone would like. And in my work as a sales consultant and sales trainer, I have discovered that this is the ultimate challenge, the biggest obstacle to overcome, the stealth reason for mediocre results. It's not the only reason most people aren't as effective as they could be. Probably the most common reason is ignorance. In other words, they just don't know how to do their jobs better. In every industry, the vast majority of salespeople have never been exposed to the best practices of their profession. They just don't know what it means to be an effective professional salesperson. And since they have no standards by which to compare their efforts, they default to relying on being nice guys or developing relationships and hoping that those relationships cover over their lack of sales skills. With most salespeople, the first step to better performance is to educate them in the best practices of their profession so they at least know what it means to be an effective salesperson. For a handful of salespeople, somewhere between 5 and 20% of the total, that's sufficient. They will take the good ideas, the best practices they have discovered, and apply them to their routines. They'll improve their competence and their confidence, and they'll create significantly better results. But that's for the 5 to 20%. What about the rest? What about the 80% for whom exposure to good ideas is just not sufficient? For the vast majority of salespeople, why is there a gap between idea and action? And that brings us to the dirty little secret of self-improvement. The principle that I don't think I've ever seen exposed by the purveyors of self-improvement programs. It's this, the dirty little secret. There is a price you must pay to change your behavior and become more successful. And the reason there's a gap between idea and action is that most people are not willing to pay the price. The price is time, energy, and much more importantly, the emotional cost of stretching yourself out of your comfort zones. So the price is time, it's energy, and it is the emotional cost of stretching yourself out of your comfort zones. Let me illustrate with an example. So not so long ago, I accompanied a salesperson on a sales call in which he had planned to present a major new program. Now, the salesperson talked for over an hour and managed in that time to mention 2 minor features of the 10-item program. And that was it. Sales call was a total waste of our time. The salesperson's time, the customer time, and my time. What happened? The salesperson was perfectly capable of presenting the program, but he didn't. Why not? Here's my interpretation. The salesperson had an image of himself as the, quote, knowledgeable guy. Therefore, he found every stray bit of conversation as an invitation to expound on something. He spent the hour talking about it because it made him feel good to live up to his image of himself. He never presented the program because to do so would be to impinge on his self-image. He could no longer be the expert if he were talking about something that was new to him. To do something different would be uncomfortable. The cost in terms of his view of himself was just too great. No matter what changes the company want, his image of himself, the image that he is comfortable with, is going to be in play. Now, this particular salesperson was not alone in this situation. He just exhibited an example of a phenomenon for which we are all culpable, and this is this conflict between what we know to do and what we actually do. That cuts a wide swath among the human race. We rarely make these decisions consciously. It's not an act of will. Rather, it's an emotional pull on our need to remain within our comfort zones. The key phrase in the example above is, it made him feel good. So we all develop comfort zones, habits, routines, and practices for which we have developed some comfort. It makes us feel good. And when we are called upon to change our behavior to something which is clearly a more effective, more desirable practice, the cost of confronting the feel-good comfort zones is too often way too much. In perhaps every company with whom I've worked over 30-plus years as a sales consultant, the stealth cause of sales problems was, in one way or another, the emotional pull of comfort zones. So, what do? Resign yourself to sliding down the hillside of slowly diminishing sales results and hope you hold out long enough to retire? Or do you decide to tackle the issue head-on, driven by commitment to make the most of your position or your organization? Now, if you decide to take the next step in personal and organizational development, if you decide to ferret out that stealth cause of lack of sales growth, then I have some ideas for you. The core strategy is to change the equation. Right now, you or your salespeople feel good when they're in their comfort zones. To make a change in what they do causes them discomfort. The equation looks like this. Current behavior equals comfortable feeling. New behavior equals uncomfortable feeling. Okay, suppose you could change it. So current behavior equals uncomfortable feeling. New behavior equals likelihood of more comfortable feeling. In other words, the pain of not changing must be greater than the cost of changing. I am 100%, absolutely, unequivocally convinced that most people don't change until they become discontented with their current state of affairs. In other words, if you're going to change your behavior, you must develop and deepen some discontent. If you're going to facilitate the change in your salespeople, or anyone else for that matter, you must develop and deepen discontent. Thomas Edison said, "Restlessness and discontent are the necessities of progress." Nathaniel Hawthorne said, quote, "The world owes all its onward impulses to men ill at ease. The happy man inevitably confines himself within ancient limits." If you are an individual concerned about stimulating yourself to greater levels of personal performance, then start this process by setting some specific, measurable goals that require you to be someone better than you are. Share them with the people around you so that they can hold you accountable. Specifically detail in words and pictures what you'll gain by achieving the goals and what will happen if you don't. If you're a leader of salespeople, you have more tools at your disposal. Start by creating powerful goals for sales behavior and creating and communicating specific performance expectations. On a regular basis, recognize and reward those salespeople who most effectively make the changes. Have frank and uncomfortable discussions with those that don't. Consider revising your compensation plan to directly reward the more effective sales behaviors. And of course, those employees who most stubbornly resist your efforts to move them to more effective sales practices, they should be helped to find a more suitable position. Whether you're an individual salesperson or a leader of salespeople, you'll never achieve your potential for increasing sales, growing market share, until you successfully confront and regularly defeat the stealth cause of lackluster sales. Step into the gap between idea and action. Okay. Hey, before I go, I just want to let you know about a new book. Max Cates is a friend of mine. He's an author and a former sales manager. I think Max has written 3 books, but he's got a new one, and this is called 4 Steps to Supercharge Sales Teams. I think you'll like it. 4 Steps to Supercharge Sales Teams. And Max Cates, C-A-T-E-S, Amazon. Buy it at Amazon or wherever online books are sold. Okay? That's it. We're done. Bye-bye.